In October, the early days of October, and now we're in October 22nd.
Yeah.
So
we're already a little bit in.
Yeah, just about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been it's been a bit of a time, but there's been about almost 10 games per team at this point. So there's been a lot of action going on in the first 3 weeks here.
Yep.
So
There's
let's look at the third 3 stars of the week for this week as well. At number 1, we got David Pastrnak, who's got 7 goals in 3 games, 2 assists, and 9 points. Very great game, very great season so far for David Pastrnak. He's just playing up to expectations. Boston looks as pretty much as good as he does right now. So that's not much of a surprise as well. John Carlson at second star of the week. 1 goal, but 7 assists, totaling in 8 points. John Carlson is one of those very first star, 5-star defenseman.
Yeah.
So he's one of those big guys in the defensive lineup, and he's also a big fantasy contributor just because he puts up so many assists these days during the season.
7 assists, you said?
Yep.
That's great.
In 4 games.
Wow.
Too. So
that's impressive.
Mm-hmm. Even
Very
for
impressive.
a first-line defenseman.
Yeah.
Third star is Carter Hutton of the Buffalo Sabres, who led his team to 2 wins in a row and 2 shutouts in a row. So big 2 games for Carter Hutton, and the Buffalo Sabres still look red hot right now in the beginning of the season.
Sabres, maybe their success will continue a little bit more than we've seen in the past. But we talked about this a lot, about them fading off at the start of the season.
A little bit.
But maybe this is a good sign. Maybe they finally have their goaltending element solved a little bit.
Yeah, they seem to that was a big problem for Buffalo in the last couple years or so, where it's just they couldn't really find a number 1 goaltender. And it wasn't really until Robin Lehner emerged that the Buffalo Sabres were considering him a number 1 goaltender. And then all of a sudden he gets shipped off to the Islanders one season, and now he's shipped off back to Chicago. So Buffalo had it in their grasp to have a number 1 goaltender, but now they finally found one with Carter Hutton. So hopefully that success continues for them. And plus, we'll look at the standings later on in the show and kind of evaluate where they are as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hopefully Buffalo keeps kind of going strong, because I feel like everyone in the league just kind of wants them to start winning and keep winning at this point after seeing them kind of be very mediocre for the last, 5 years, 5 seasons? It seems like forever, honestly, at this point, that they're just always, bottom of the barrel, being towards the lower bracket. But
it just must be very tough to be a Buffalo Sabres fan.
It
really is.
It must be tough to be a Buffalo Sabres player.
Or is even a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if you're a season ticket holder, that might be actually cheap for you, because usually if you have mediocre seasons like that.
Yeah, because Sabres tickets can't be too expensive right now.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they'll rise now because they're doing good, but who knows?
Yeah.
Kind of doubt it.
Well, with that, let's jump into the scores of last week. Tuesday, we had, on October 15th, just last week, we had 6 different games. One of those big games, I believe, and it was on national television on NBC Sports Network, Lightning winning against the Canadiens 3-1. Braden Coburn, Steven Stamkos contributing there. Steven Stamkos, by the way, is very close to 400 goals for the Tampa Bay Lightning in his career, so he's going to have that milestone coming up soon as well. And that's about the big one from Tuesday. Going into Wednesday, October 16th, only about 5 more games here. Penguins won against the Colorado Avalanche in overtime in that game, and that gave the Avalanche their first loss of the season. Just as a loss, because they didn't even have a regulation loss at this point. So they do get an overtime loss, but they still got a point on the board, but that's a big win for the Penguins at home there. Thursday, October 17th, big win again for the Lightning, too, against the Bruins in the shootout. That's a huge one there, because Tampa Bay usually doesn't. They are 50-50 against Boston, but Boston usually gets the favorable matchup in that game. So it was nice to see the Lightning winning in a shootout, because they definitely needed those 2 points. Friday, October 18th, the Capitals winning against the Rangers 5-2. And this was a game that I saw the highlights for, and you know what the biggest problem is that you just can't put the Capitals on the power play because their power play has been deadly for so long. It just never stops. And the unfortunate part is that the New York Rangers did commit a little bit too many penalties, and they suffered 2 power play goals on that night. So for the Capitals to get that win, that was big for them. But it seems like no matter what year it is, as long as the Capitals have Ovechkin on their roster, their power play seems to just be deadly every single year.
Well, what I don't get about the Capitals is that they use the same setup every time on the power play, but
it works.
Put Ovechkin, right by the top of the circle.
Oh my gosh.
To the right of the goaltender. And teams, we've seen this ever since Ovechkin's really been in the league, and teams still don't know how to cover him.
Yeah.
And they will leave him open so much. And it amazes me that teams are like, oh, Capitals going on the power play, we better cover Ovechkin. Actually better skate to that side of the ice for once,
Yeah.
They just let him be, and then they look surprised when he scores.
Well, it's hard too, because if you only have 4 guys on the ice, you want to cover as much ice as possible too, and you want to cover as many people as possible. The problem is that Washington always has other guys besides Ovechkin on that roster that can be just as deadly. Because, now in this power play line, we also have TJ Oshie, who's also a very good shot. And you still have John Carlson and, the other defensemen, too. And Backstrom is still going to be there, too. So they still have a lot of those weapons besides Ovechkin that still have to be covered, too. So it's hard to cover everybody on the ice when you have 4 guys. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually wanted to bring that up, too. It seems like every time Ovechkin gets that puck, when he's just winding up a slap shot from just outside the circle and there's nobody on him, that shot is almost like an 80-20, and he's had an 80% chance of making it in at this point, because that's how good his shot is.
Yep.
And the great thing is that no matter how old he gets, it's just one shot that he trains for every single year.
Exactly.
So you're never going to stop it until you actually cover him. It's actually that's why he's also one of my favorite players, is just because his shot is the definition of automatic. It's like every time he gets that shot, it's almost an automatic put in.
Yep.
It's crazy.
I agree. Yeah. I don't know. People just need to solve the Capitals' power play, because
it hasn't
been able to be done for the past, too long.
It really is.
Sick of seeing it be successful, because it's so good.
It's deadly
so
every single year, but they shouldn't be deadly because teams should have figured it out by now.
Exactly.
But
yep.
Yeah, I get you on that one. So going into the score, Saturday, October 13th, we had this was actually a busy day. Almost every team played in this day. Big one for the Knights, winning against the Penguins, 3-0.
Fleury's second return to Pittsburgh. Got the win this time because they went last season, I believe, to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up losing that game, but they came back, shut them out. It was a really solid game by everyone. That was I think Gerard Gallant said that was the best game they've played in regular season for this year and last year. It was a very solid performance by everything. Everything was working, which is great to see. The first period started off a little bit slow, but then they got rolling and it was good.
Yeah, and it's good that they even just shut out the Penguins. It's hard enough to win against the Penguins at home.
Yep.
But to even shut them out, too, that's a big win there.
Exactly.
And also just a shout-out for the Devils finally winning another game against the Canucks 1-0. I mean, if it's a 1-0 win, it's still a win.
Finally getting wins.
The Devils are finally getting there. Sunday, October 20th, we had about 5 more games on the schedule here. Capitals winning against the Blackhawks 5-3. And again, it was all due to special teams. TJ Oshie scored on the power play. Nick Dowd scored shorthanded, so that's unfortunate. And they scored 3 more goals, I believe, in the third. Yeah, 3 more goals in the third period, and 1 by Ovechkin as well. So bad loss for the Blackhawks. They seemed to keep it close too for the first 2 periods, and it just all fell apart in the third period, unfortunately.
Yeah, Rebecca being our Blackhawks insider. Any comments on that game?
No, again, the power play, I think that's what killed us. Even though they only scored, I think it was 1 goal on the power play.
Mm-hmm. But then 1 shorthanded.
It's a rough life right now.
Rough life as a Hawks fan. More of the story.
I wouldn't say as a Hawks fan, just rough life in that game.
There you go. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and giving up a shorthanded goal didn't help that cause either.
No.
Monday, October 21st, had 4 games on the night. Flyers won a huge one against the
Yeah.
Knights, 6-2.
That was an ugly game.
Oh my,
Rough
what
time
happened
to be
there?
a Knights
Poor
fan.
Oscar Dansk just had no one playing well in front of him. Everyone just playing slow and just really, it was a bad game. It was one of the worst games I've probably watched them play, because everyone was talking about, like, bring Fleury in, but that's a game that, regardless of who was in net for the Knights, it still would have been a loss, because the defense wasn't there, the goal scoring wasn't there. Flyers were up like 4-0 at one point. It was bad. So I feel bad for Oscar Dansk.
They were up 5-0.
5-0.
And then Marchessault scored.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
wow.
and then the Flyers scored again.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Rough game.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That
Very,
is-
very rough game for the Knights. They'll need to bounce back after that one.
They play tonight.
It was ugly. They do play tonight, yes.
We're going to win.
Wait, so they play tonight. Oh, wow. So they're
Yeah.
going on 2 in a row games.
Yep. So they flew from Philly to Chicago.
Oh, boy. Yeah, it's going to be tough on the road.
Yep.
So once again,
Better
we
for
can't
us.
go out this day, though, without talking about the Blues and the Avalanche. That was a huge game. Blues winning 3-1 against the Avalanche, giving them their first regulation loss of the season. That's a big win for the Blues. Jordan Binnington getting a nice home win at the Enterprise Center. That's a big win for the Blues against this Avalanche team that looked that they might have a playoff appearance as well. So these two teams might meet in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, that would be a good series to watch.
It would be. It
Blues-
would be a great
Blues
Western
Avalanche?
Conference final.
That would be.
It'll be a great Western Conference final to look at. And then the Stars also winning against the Senators 2-1 because the Stars get their first home win of the season as well.
Impressive for the Stars.
And again, another 1-goal game.
Another loss for the Senators.
Another 1-goal game for the Stars. They either lose by one or win by one at this point. It's kind of funny.
It's a rough life for the Stars, I guess.
It's a rough life for Ottawa.
It's a rough life for a lot of teams, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to look at that standings, too, when we come back, too,
Yeah.
because that was the end of our scores. We'll look at next week's as well, next week's scores, and then look at the standings as well. And your Hockey Day in History is also coming up soon. So keep in touch here on the Dump and Chase podcast, and keep it tuned in to WLRA 88.1 FM, Lewis University in Romeoville. The Dump and Chase podcast here on WLRA 88.1 FM. We're back with the show. And we're going to go over the stat line segment here on the Dump and Chase podcast. Let's go look at the little bit of some of the big stats for some of the teams that are kind of rebounded this year. And I'm looking more at the Edmonton Oilers, the Anaheim Ducks, teams of that nature that have seemed to have risen up in the standings. And here's one big stat that is really propelling both of these two teams to go to the top. Last year, the Anaheim Ducks and the Edmonton Oilers allowed more than 3 goals a game last year. The Oilers allowed 3.3 goals per game. The Sabres had 3.27, and the Ducks had 3.02. This year, as it is right now, after 8 games for these teams, the Anaheim Ducks are all the way at the top at 1.78 per game. That is a huge difference of a stat line. The Arizona Coyotes also rebounded. They're second at 1.86. The Oilers are up there fifth at 2.22, and the Buffalo Sabres are right below them at sixth with 2.33 per game. So that stat line alone really shows you the difference of how these teams turned around from last season to this season, and it's a big part because defense and goaltending has really stepped up for all these teams.
That is cool. Seeing how teams rebound, especially the Oilers and Ducks, who kind of had mediocre seasons last season. Neither team made the playoffs, and the Oilers are always a team that's talked about having all the pieces together and just kind of waiting for something to happen, and the Ducks kind of just have kind of fallen off the map a little bit more. So it's good to see that these teams are rebounding. They're both leading the Pacific, or they're both on top of the Pacific Division, Oilers in first, Ducks in second. So that's good for them.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how the Oilers are doing so well, too, with only just 2 losses on the season with 7 wins. So that's a big one. That's a big season right now for the Oilers to rebound it. And it's in a season, too, where the expectation for the Oilers wasn't really that high for them coming into the season after the disappointment they had last season. But they really have rebounded this season stepping up on all three phases of the game with goaltending, defense, and offense. So really doing a great job this season so far.
Yeah, it's really good to see. Good to see the Oilers kind of bouncing back a little bit, which is great.
Now, we'd be remiss to say that special teams isn't also a factor in hockey. And the interesting part about this is I'm also looking at the power play stats as well. And for the Anaheim Ducks, even though they have a great goals against percentage so far in the season, 9 games into the season, they have a very rebutted 4.5 percentage on the power play right now, which is second to last in the league.
Oh, boy.
So the unfortunate part is that the stats also don't say how many power plays you have gotten this season, which would be pretty nice because the stats could be skewed in that part of the section. But as it is right now, the Ottawa Senators and the Anaheim Ducks are the dead last two in the power play percentages. Now, contrasting from that, the highest power play percentage is actually the Edmonton Oilers right now at first place with 38.5 on the season right now. Boston at second place, Islanders at third, and the Buffalo Sabres also at fourth. So all these teams that are really rising to the top are really starting to see. We're really starting to see on the stats when it comes to the team stats as well. So it's a huge improvement for all these teams right now that are rising.
That's good to see because obviously we know how important power plays are. For some teams it's really their bread and butter. Just trying to get those power play opportunities, make sure that that they're playing with that man up. So it's interesting. I always like looking at special team percentages for power play percentages and penalty kill percentages as well. Because I think that's really what separates a good team from or a great team from a good team. Where good teams, they'll just have mediocre numbers there, whereas a great team will be able to, really be able to use that extra space that they have on the ice with the power play. That man advantage. Be able to move the puck around and to get more opportunities there. So that's always fun to look at.
And we're always used to seeing the Washington Capitals up there too, and they're still in the top 10 this season. They're at 9th right now with 27%. And on the contrast of that, we also look at the penalty kills, as you said. Penalty kills are very important too to just keep those goals out for their team and having huge defensive stops. And right now at the penalty killing percentage, San Jose is actually at the top right now, 92.8%. But again, we see the Edmonton Oilers again leading it at third place right now with 90.3%. And just below that is actually the Vegas Golden Knights with a nice solid 90% percentage right now in the penalty kill.
That's interesting that the Oilers are so high.
Yeah, and
I'm surprised to see that.
They're leading on every single stat column right now that we've seen, leading in the power play, leading in top 5 when it top 5 in goals against, and even in goals for, they're actually in the top 10. So they seem to be leading in many of the important stat sheets right now.
They got a hot start. Maybe the Oilers will be back in the playoffs. Who knows? It's a little bit early to tell. Obviously, they're only 9 games in, but we're already a tenth of the season done.
Yeah,
Think
surprisingly,
10% of the season is done.
Surprisingly, it is. Yeah,
It's going by too quickly.
It's only been 3 weeks.
We gotta slow it down a little bit here. I don't like it.
Make the season longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it
all year round.
Make it all year round. Yeah, teams play like 200 games, and boom.
That's actually kind of crazy to think about. So it's like every 3 weeks. It's like a 10%
yeah.
off the season. That's so interesting to think about.
Yeah, that would make sense because the whole season's probably around 30 weeks-ish, which is like, oh boy, math. I don't know, like
math.
Yeah, I think the math checks out on that. I don't know. I don't want to do math though. This is a hockey show. We talk about sports. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we'll get Mother Rebecca on the phone and get the math coming in there. There we go.
She doesn't have a class right now.
There you go. Maybe next week we'll have our math expert come and crunch some numbers for us with the stats we talk about. Who knows?
Number crunching.
Exactly.
Counting. All right, so we got really sidetracked there. Anyway, we're gonna look at the standings as well when we come back and kind of see where the stats that we just talked about correlate with the teams that are in the standings right now. So we'll look at that and the standings coming up here on WLRA 88.1 FM, Lewis University in Romeoville. Coming up soon, we'll look at the standings, and your day in hockey history is also coming up. And now going back into the Dump and Chase podcast here back on WLRA 88.1 FM, Lewis University in Romeoville. It is time for your day in hockey history. In 1957, Bobby Hall scored the first goal of his NHL career to help the Blackhawks defeat the Boston Bruins 2-1 at Chicago Stadium. The rookie left wing beats goalie Don Simmons at 16 minutes at the first period for an unassisted goal, and Hall finished his NHL career with 610 goals. Rookie defenseman Paul Coffey scored his first NHL goal with the Edmonton Oilers in a 5-3 victory against the Calgary Flames at the Northlands Coliseum in 1980. Mario Lemieux in 1986 scored twice in the Pittsburgh Penguins' 5-4 overtime victory against the Buffalo Sabres to reach the 100-goal mark early in his third NHL season. It is the 7th straight win for the start of the Penguins, one short of the NHL record at the time shared by the Toronto Maple Leafs at 1934-35 and the Buffalo Sabres from 75-76. In 2002, Patrick Waugh of the Colorado Avalanche tied Terry Sawchuk's NHL record for career appearances by playing in his 971st game, a 3-3 tie when ties were in rule for the NHL during that time, was against the Oilers at the Pepsi Center. He finished his career with 1,229 appearances, a then NHL record. In 2016, the Canadiens beat the Bruins 4-2 at TD Garden, extending their road streak win against the Bruins to 9 games, their longest since Boston entered the NHL in 1924. And this streak includes 8 wins at TD Garden and 1 at Gillette Stadium, which was the site of the 2016 Bridgestone Winter Classic. That is your day in hockey history. And now we will go right into the standings. Evaluation time for teams. It is the A to F grades. Actually, not really, though, because we're going to still evaluate them, just not give them letter grades because that'd be too hard for NHL teams at this point. Anyway, we're going to go right into the Eastern Conference. Metropolitan is still led by the Washington Capitals, then the Pittsburgh Penguins, Carolina Hurricanes, New York Islanders, Blue Jackets at 5th, Philadelphia at 6th, New Jersey at 7th, and the Rangers are at 8th. So at least for the Devils fans, at least you're not last in the Metropolitan anymore.
At least they won.
Yeah, at least they won. But
that's all that matters.
But at the same time, the Rangers only still have 6 games on their season. For some reason, they're the only team that has 6 games. The Chicago Blackhawks also have 6 games. My bad. And so it's very kind of it's kind of early on to see where they are in the standings, but at least the Devils aren't last anymore. But the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Capitals are still dominating the Metropolitan. And at this point, we kind of talked about this in the beginning of the season, in the beginning of the show, that the Metropolitan was going to be not as competitive as last year just because a lot of the teams that are in this division are either going to drop or just not have as much of a playoff expectation. So it's not too surprising that we see the Capitals, the Penguins, and even the Hurricanes kind of dominating this division, because we kind of expect those same 3 teams we'll see those same 3 teams at the end of the season as well. Islanders might be a good wild card pick, but we'll see it by the end of the season as well. Atlantic Division, Buffalo is up there still at number 1, Boston at number 2, Toronto at number 3, Montreal is at number 4, Tampa Bay has dropped to 5th, Florida is at 6th, Detroit is 7th, and Ottawa, not surprisingly, in 8th with only 1 win. And that one win was also against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So this is actually kind of a crazy Atlantic Division, honestly.
Go Ottawa. Go Ottawa.
Crazy Atlantic Division right now. It's weird to see Tampa Bay in 5th and at a 4-3-1 record, but at the same time, this Atlantic Division seems to it's going to be very competitive into the end. I am very surprised to see Montreal there. I'm very surprised to see Montreal at 4-3-2 at 4th place. It's definitely not what we expected. And if honestly, if anything, I thought Florida would be up there, but Florida's actually at 6th with 3-2-3. They've had a lot of overtime / shootout losses right now, so I think the Panthers just want to win or lose, or actually just win at regulation at this point and win it during a shootout and an overtime. And Detroit at 3-5-0, I mean, it's Detroit. I mean, they have expectation this season to at least be better than they were last season. But where they are right now, I just don't think it's going to be a playoff bound anyway. But Atlantic Division at this point of the season right now still looks very competitive. I mean, Buffalo's still up there. We talk about this all the time, where we don't know where Buffalo's going to land by the midseason even. So the Atlantic Division is still going to be interesting, but Boston is still up there at second. I wouldn't be surprised to see Boston leading the division by the end of the season, getting that first seed in the playoffs, and then Toronto might be right behind them. Standings in the Atlantic Division are going to shift really, really badly probably by midseason. It's a very competitive division this year. Looking at the Western Conference, Central Division, it is led by the Colorado Avalanche, followed by the Blues, then the Winnipeg Jets, who are at an even 500, which is weird to think about because the third-place team is at an even 500. Nashville is right behind them at 4-3-1 with only 9 points. Dallas at 3-7-1, and they're at 5th place. Chicago at 2-3-1, and then Minnesota at 2-6-0. This is a very kind of a weak division, it seems.
Poor Minnesota.
Like the third place team is at even 500.
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
That's
actually
looking real weak.
Yeah, and the fact that Dallas has a 3-7-1 record and they're 5th in the division.
Yeah,
which is, but this is boggling my mind right now how this Central Division is shaping up to be right now.
it's bizarre.
It is really
It's really bizarre. Yeah.
Nashville at 4-3-1 though, so maybe I think Nashville could probably take that third place spot away from Winnipeg and might even out the Central a little bit more, just because. But it seems like Colorado and St. Louis are just going to dominate this division for the rest of the year at this point.
Yep.
So looking at the Pacific now it's the Edmonton Oilers who are on top. Anaheim right behind them. Vegas right behind them. Calgary 5-4-1. Vancouver at a 5-3-0. Coyotes at 4-2-1. San Jose at 3-5-0, and the Kings with the same record at last place. This Pacific Division looks to be competitive too. Right now it's still Edmonton, Anaheim, and Vegas, but Calgary could still creep up in there. Vancouver and Arizona can still creep up in there. I think the way this is going to go is that the Central Division is only going to have 3, and I think the Pacific Division is going to have 2, both the wild card spots.
Yeah, I can see that. The Pacific is just looking a lot more competitive this year.
Yeah.
At least through these first, 10 games for these teams.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting, though. I could see Vancouver climbing a little bit.
Me too.
The Coyotes climbing a little bit. Don't know what's happening in San Jose or L.A. I mean, like, L.A., I think they've
been on the low for
they're
a while.
Slowly entering the dumpster fire stage.
Well, the Kings were kind of not expected to really make a lot of splash this season.
San Jose though is surprising, but I'm not too mad about it. I'm perfectly fine where they
are.
are.
People on their roster.
San Jose, yeah I can see that.
like why?
Yeah.
I just don't get it. They still want to just keep the same guys over and over.
They want to keep Joe Thornton around because they desperately want him to
Joe
get a Stanley
Thornton around,
Cup.
even though he was going to be an unrestricted free agent. They brought back Patrick Marleau, which isn't a bad acquisition. To be fair, but at the same time, they're still all old.
I feel like
at some point you just gotta let go.
I feel like Patrick Marleau was just like a business decision, saying like, this will make the fans happy again. We're kind of having a rough start. Got to get fan morale up. Let's bring back a good old guy that everyone knows.
Yeah.
And boom, Patrick Marleau's back in the mix, and now fans are happy again.
Yeah.
Even though the team's not playing too well.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the problem. Even though you bring in so many of these guys,
yeah,
that doesn't mean your team is going to do well. It's like the same thing with the Chicago Blackhawks. They think that they're going to bring in all these veteran guys that they used to have and be the same productive kind of forwards that they were when they played.
Bowman, it's not working.
They did that with Patrick Sharp, and look how that turned out, too.
Didn't work.
It didn't work. It did that with Brandon Saad right now, and it's not working the same way as it did. So at this point, I think teams just got to figure this out. That bringing in veteran guys can, boost fan interaction and boost some fan ratings. That's not going to boost the team's performance ratings.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Yep.
So
you should go have a talk with Bowman about that.
I would have a talk with any GM that thinks that. So I would honestly it's Bowman or whoever the GM for the Sharks is too.
Who knows?
But
who knows? Don't care.
This is how the standings
teams that need a little bit of help though,
yeah.
For sure. But
I mean,
it still is early though. It's early in the season.
It is.
There's plenty of hockey left to be played.
The one team that does need help is still Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota's
Why?
been needing help
'Cause,
for a while.
Like I don't get this team anymore. Like they no matter how much talent they will load up for their roster, they will never go further than like second round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't even matter at this point, like what the regular season performance is and how good their players are going to be.
Yep.
It boggles my mind why they're always, and even this season, why they're even last in the standings at this point. You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
And I love how I think it's Jason Zucker keeps just belittling the coach on all the problems that they're having.
Okay, see that is the start of a team that is going to derail. Absolutely derail.
Oh yeah.
Start to derail. I think they've already derailed.
I think
'Cause
they're tipping off the tracks.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is actually, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna go further than that and just say they're completely off the tracks at this point.
Yeah.
Because this is what I think the problem was in Buffalo for so long, is that the culture was not a winning culture. It was such a losing culture, and nobody saw any expectation for this team, and they kept thinking of loading up talents, changing coaches, and changing personnel every single year to see what will work and what won't. And it didn't work. And all of a sudden, now we talked about this too. Now Jack Eichel is back is with his third coach, and he's played in 4 seasons.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's bad. And now, if the Minnesota's going to do the same thing, I'm not going to be surprised that, Zach Parise might ask for a trade at this point.
Yep.
Some of the big stars might even ask for a trade, because if Minnesota is going to keep having this kind of change of personnel and change of attitudes for players, it's not going to go well for this franchise.
Exactly. Well, the good news is that there's plenty of hockey left to be played in this season. And speaking of plenty of hockey, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll be looking at some of the key games of the next week of NHL action. We'll be right back on the Dumb with Chase podcast.
And we are back here in the Dump and Chase podcast here on WLRA 80.1 FM. It's time to look at the future in the NHL and the future matchups that are coming up. Tuesday, October 22nd, we have to talk about the Vegas Golden Knights and the Chicago Blackhawks going at it tonight at 7:30 on NBCSN Chicago, or NBC Chicago, NBC Sports Chicago. Why does that always... All the NBCs are really
Words are hard.
We say it
There
every
it
time,
is.
but it's true.
There it is. So, yeah, Chicago, Vegas Golden Knights. Chicago is at home. What is everyone's thoughts? I think this is a win.
The Knights are going to win.
False. The Blackhawks
The Knights
are going to win.
The Knights are going to win.
I think what's going to be so funny is we're supposed to be editing something for our class.
That's
so
right.
we're supposed to be working as a team, but our teams are playing against each other. So we're going to be like far apart.
We'll be editing together, and then during commercial break, and then we'll get back to the game, and we'll be rivals, and then we'll go back working, and it'll just be back and forth for
It'll
2.5 hours.
It'll be, Reid, I really like that cut. Good job. No! Reid, go away!
No! That should be fun.
You should not have scored there.
Yeah.
Dude, we should just record it.
Yo, my gosh. Yeah, just going back and
Broadcast
forth.
the entire thing.
Yeah. I think it'll be a good game, though. I think the Knights are going to win. I think they'll be looking to rebound after that mistake that was the game in Philadelphia. And I think they'll do good.
It's gonna be tough for the Knights because they're coming right off, a road loss like that,
They
they have to come back literally the next day to Chicago.
And they'll be like,
they're gonna be
no,
tired.
we got to turn it around, though.
They're gonna be gassed.
They will be.
They're gonna be gassed.
They'll be very gassed. But they'll just need to find the parts of their game that are their bread and butter, and really execute on those and make sure that they. I don't know. It'll be good. I think it'll be a good game regardless. But I'm hoping the Knights win. Just so I can rub it in your face, Rebecca.
Well, the Hawks are going to win, and I'll rub it in your face.
Oh,
because
boy.
guess who I have on my fantasy team?
Alex
Cody Glass. I do have to break it
You
to
do have
but
Cody
Reid
Glass.
really wants
Yeah.
Cody Glass.
Yeah.
He keeps trying to either get me to trade him or drop him from my team.
Yeah.
But you also have Paul Stastny, don't you?
I have Stastny and Nosek. Question mark.
I
Yeah,
think
but
you have
Nosek's on the
yeah.
bench, I think, because I just
Yeah.
put him on
Well,
the bench.
yeah, I
for
just
you.
moved Nosek to the
Take
bench.
that
Yeah.
Well,
off the
I
bench.
moved Nosek to the bench in one of the last.
I'm gonna move him back to my starting roster and then move him to the bench because
Jake,
I would have.
Jake has been managing Rebecca's fantasy team because she doesn't know what she's doing.
Well,
That's not
partially.
true. I won last week.
That's
Yeah, you're
true.
right.
She did. She rebounded from a very bad loss in week 1.
That was
so
a terrible loss.
That was it was.
I
But to be
know.
fair, that team was really good. So yeah, both actually we kind of rebounded
Back
too.
on
Everyone's like 1-1 now in our fantasy league.
Yeah,
It's
except for
kind
me,
of-
but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, who is in last place for fantasy right now?
I'm in 9th, actually, so I'm not last. There's 10 teams.
I thought you were in last.
No, I'm pretty sure. Am I? Oh, no.
As of
I
this morning, you were in last.
Crap.
I
I guess I'm in
forgot.
last. Surprise.
Oh, yep.
I thought you won your first week matchup.
No, you didn't.
No.
Oh,
wow, I am in
okay.
last.
Okay, I just probably
Ooh.
didn't remember
Ripperoni.
that. Ripperoni.
Wow, that's unfortunate.
Ouch. Is
Huh.
there anyone? Is there anybody else that's 0-2?
Yeah, one
Yeah.
other person. How
Oh.
to change? How to change
change
team
team
name?
N.
I love it. Yeah.
Oh, how did she? Oh, that's my buddy. Hello, actually.
And
That's-
who's in first place? Wendy's cool team. What a name.
What a name. What a.
Every
what a
other
name.
name is something to do pretty much with hockey or how to change your team name or Vipers. And then there's just Wendy's cool team.
You know, when you can't think of a team name, just go with the original one.
Mine's Sega
Go with the one that
Genesis.
it gives you.
Exactly.
Gives you.
Anyway,
Does anyone actually know my reference name?
yeah, it's a Sega Genesis.
Well, yeah,
The
for
game
you.
I
Well,
always
actually,
say-
yeah, I was gonna say.
yeah,
I figured you were gonna know.
of course
that
I know
reference.
that, Jake. Yeah.
But I was wondering if actually Patty would know that reference or not. But that's
Yeah.
okay.
The only thing I got from it was Tyler Sagan. The
That's
rest of
half
it, I
of it.
got nothing.
That's
All
half
right.
of it at least. Yeah. All right,
Let's get back to the
Wednesday.
schedule. A little bit off track, but what else is new?
Wednesday, October 23rd. 2 games only on that night. Red Wings and Senators and Penguins and Lightning. Penguins and Lightning is going to be broadcasted on NBCSN because Wednesday night rivalry, and as it should be, Penguins and Lightning kind of have a bit of a rivalry over the past 5 years or so. Some playoff matchups, some very disappointing times for the Tampa Bay Lightning, losing in that Eastern Conference Game 7 against that Pittsburgh Penguins team in 2016, and the Penguins were on the road all the way. Actually, went all the way to win that Stanley Cup as well. So these two teams have had bittersweet victories against each other. So that's one that is going to be very nice. But it's at 7 o'clock. It's very weird because it's going to be nationally broadcasted at 7 o'clock, but yet these two teams are both on the East
It's an
Coast.
East Coast matchup, so that's
Yeah.
8 o'clock for them. That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird because they usually
So
start
like
at 6, so it would be 7 for them, or 6 our time, which would be 7 for them. But because it's nationally broadcasted, they're like, yeah, let's make it good for everybody in the
Yeah.
time zone. So yeah,
Huh,
they're gonna
interesting.
start at 8.
so gonna watch that game.
Yeah. Who watches the Lightning?
Well, if there's only
Yeah,
2
well-
games on the schedule, there's nothing else
I
to
think
watch.
I would rather watch the Red Wings Senators just to see the absolute mess
The tank
that
bowl.
game is going to be.
the actual tanks. of
Yeah,
both
exactly.
teams. Anyway, Thursday, October 24th, we got quite a few games to look at here. There's a lot. Capitals and Oilers. That is going to be huge. 8 o'clock start time in Edmonton. A 6-2-2 Capitals team facing the 7-1-1 Oilers team. That one is going to be a big matchup for both of these two teams. Capitals on the road, though. They have to be able to rely on their special teams. I think the Capitals do the best when they're in their special teams. So if they can have the Oilers draw some penalties, or if they can draw some penalties against this Oilers team, they might be in business for this game on Thursday.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup, too. Edmonton kind of being good this season, and the Capitals being the Capitals. Should be a good matchup.
Yep. And it's going to be in Edmonton, so it's going to even be harder for the Oilers as well. For the Capitals. Friday, October 25th, Avalanche and Golden Knights. This is going to be...
Belmar returns
Avalanche
to Vegas.
wins.
Golden
Fun fact
Knights
also,
win.
it's also going to be on ESPN Plus.
Oh wow, yeah. Let's talk about ESPN finally recognizing hockey. Like, wow.
Took
When
them
was
a-
it?
About time.
When was the last time we saw hockey in SportsCenter outside of the top 10 plays?
Never.
Like,
Very rarely.
unless it's the Olympics.
Yeah.
I feel like you never see it.
Yeah. I mean, it took them like, what?
Too long.
Yeah,
I mean,
too long.
any sport that's in the Olympics is a real sport.
Exactly. Facts.
Especially fencing.
Even fencing. We're looking at you fencers out there, mad respect all the fencers
Football,
out there.
not a real sport.
Not a real sport.
Cheerleading, not a real sport. They don't have Olympics.
Oh, man. So, yeah, anyway, Friday, October 25th, that is going to be the biggest one there. Big game, and it's going to be in Vegas, too, so home momentum, too. It's going to be big.
I'm looking forward to Pierre-Edouard Bellemare coming back to Vegas. He was a fan favorite.
That's
then
right.
He signed the big deal with kind of big deal with Colorado. So
interesting too. I looked up on Belmar's wiki too because I was very interested on seeing where he came from too. He is actually very much a veteran in hockey in general.
He came from Philadelphia in the expansion draft, correct?
Yes,
he was from Philly. Okay,
but he is 34 years old.
Oh.
And he's came actually from international play from the Swedish league. He played 5 years in the Swedish league and actually started his career in 2006 with a Finnish team. So he played internationally from 2006 to 2014 before he signed with the Philadelphia Flyers in 2014.
That's interesting.
And then for 3 years he was with the Flyers, and then he went to the expansion draft to be drafted for Vegas. So, yeah, as a French international, he's actually played a lot of international hockey more than he has in the NHL.
That's really interesting. Wow. Yeah, because he was undrafted. Huh.
The more you know.
The more you know.
So, yeah, that's a very fun fact about Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. So, Saturday, October 26th, we got a few games as well going here. Toronto, or the St. Louis Blues, taking on the Boston Bruins.
Stanley Cup final rematch. Let's go.
Yep.
Those are always fun to watch.
Blues win.
Blues win.
Please.
Yeah, Blues win, yep. But it is going to be a Boston, but it's also going to be naturally broadcast.
Game 7 rematch. Wow.
Yep. And it's going to be on NBCSN, as it should be. But this one is at 6 o'clock. Oh, but because it's on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a throw. These times are so weird sometimes.
Who knows?
It's weird. But, yeah, there's a couple of afternoon games as well on Saturday. Blackhawks taking on the Hurricanes at 1 o'clock. So that's the only afternoon game on that day. So, yeah, that one will be there as well. So there's a couple of afternoon games there. Sunday, we have a few games as well, about 8 games. Bruins taking on the Rangers. There isn't really a lot of big matchups here. Possibly, the Panthers and the Oilers might be a good one.
That could be a good one. Yeah.
Panthers need to go back on track though, because I think
do.
the Panthers really just need some more wins. I think they just keep going into extra time and they keep losing in extra time. So they got to be able to find a win, either in extra time or just find a way to get a regulation win to get some more 2 points, because this team definitely should be a little bit better than what they're expected as right now. And then Monday, October 28th, our last day, Coyotes and Sabres, only 2 games on the day, but Coyotes and Sabres looks like that's going to be the most important one. At 6 p.m., it will be on NHL Network in Buffalo. Should be a really good game. This is another Buffalo homestand, but this should be a good game for Buffalo, but Arizona could use another win right now in the standings as they are 4-2-1.
Yep, that should be a good matchup. I think Canucks-Panthers could be decent as well on Monday. I think those are 2 teams that kind of have a little bit to prove this season. So it'll be good to see.
Yeah, I think that will be nice to see. That one also will be on ESPN Plus at 9 p.m. So ESPN doing a good amount of job to broadcast some more NHL games.
Yeah.
Finally.
About
Took some time.
Speaking of the Canucks, I just saw this one kind of news bit. Jack Hughes for the Devils scored his first NHL goal.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Against the Canucks, where his brother plays on. So that's kind of cool. Everyone on the internet was like, imagine waiting until you play your brother to score your first NHL goal. Like, that would be great. And I think his brother was on the ice, too, for it.
I think he was, yeah.
I think it was on the ice, yeah.
So that's
kind of funny.
It makes me think of when the Chuck brothers scored their first goal.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's really funny watching brothers play each other and having to take like a brother picture before the game.
Yeah.
They always look
that's
so
right.
miserable.
Yeah, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to win with my
Mom,
team.
I don't want to take another picture.
Exactly, yeah.
Imagine if the Sedins were on 2 different teams.
Oh, that would be crazy.
That would
That'd
actually
be
be really funny.
That would be crazy. I don't know if I'd like that. That'd be kind of weird.
I know it would be weird because you wouldn't be, used to seeing the Sedins on 2 different teams.
The sibling games are always fun, though.
We did see the Stahl brothers be on 2 different teams and then on the same team for a while.
That's true, yeah. They've kind of been all over a little bit, though, yeah.
Because I remember when Jordan Stahl and Eric Stahl were both on Carolina.
Yep.
But their careers, Eric Stahl was had a majority of his career as the captain of the Hurricanes, where Jordan Staal was kind of mainly in Pittsburgh, but he was also with some other teams too.
Yep.
But I mainly remembered him in Pittsburgh too.
Yep.
And then Mark Staal is just still there in New York.
He's been there forever.
He's just never changed there.
Yeah.
So
while we've been talking about past and present games, let's shift to the Lewis hockey team. This past weekend, they played Purdue Northwest on that was Friday.
Oh, that's right.
Game 1, they won 7-2. Big high scoring game, that one. And then the next day, 76 win in overtime. So
the big scoring game right there.
2 big scoring games for the Flyers on the road this past weekend. And coming up this weekend, they're playing Robert Morris on October 25th and 26th. So if you need something to do, watch some nice hockey, courtesy of Lewis University, you can go to Canlan Ice Sports in Romeoville, 7:30 on Friday and 5 o'clock on Saturday. We will be covering the Saturday game for WLRA. Jake and I will be calling that one once again, so you can tune in at 5 o'clock on Saturday. Also, their Hockey Fights Cancer weekend, so that'll be cool as well. But come and support your Lewis Flyers hockey team. They are fun games. We've now done, how many have we broadcasted? 6 of them or something like that. A decent amount, and they are fun games to watch, and we can all attest for that because we've all been there. They're fun games to watch. College hockey, is a very
what a time to
very
be alive.
pure form of hockey, and I love watching it. So
yeah,
support your Flyers hockey.
It really is, and Flyers are also 4-3-1 in the season, so they still do have a winning record, and they are doing some pretty good success in this season. And they're still they're not even halfway through the schedule yet, so they still have a lot to go, and it's still a lot of fun to watch how the hockey team grows and see where they might be at the end of the season.
Exactly, it should be fun to kind of watch their progression, and of course, you can hear it all on 88.1. Jake and I've been having fun doing those hockey games. I must say,
too.
Those have been a good time.
It has been.
It's great to bring hockey to more people through the radio.
And I'm glad to bring it back too, because I know 3 years ago when I first did my first hockey broadcast, I had so much fun.
Yeah.
And I had the most fun out of like any other sport that I broadcasted too, because it's just such a fast-paced game.
It is.
And at the same time, that's why it's also one of my favorite sports. It's just because it's so fast.
Yep.
And you always have there's always something going on.
Exactly.
In that sport.
Yep.
So I'm glad to bring it back finally. And I'm finally glad to get the opportunity to just broadcast more of these games because they really deserve it.
Bring hockey to the masses, of course. Well, I think that is it for the Dumb and Chase podcast. What episode are we on? I know I always ask this.
7.
7.
That's right.
We're on episode 7 already. Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
We're almost we're halfway through the semester. Wow, look at that.
We're more than halfway through.
We're
the
more than
semester.
halfway. Yeah, technically more than halfway
16-week
through.
semester. We're in week 9.
Week 9.
Now.
Wow.
Yeah, we're going on the fly.
Oh, man. Wow. Well,
that was bad.
thank you all for tuning in today. I think we just end the show there. We just cut it off of another rough Jake joke. This has been Reid, Rebecca, and Jake for the Dump and Chase podcast on 88.1 FM WLRA The Start, Lewis University in Romeoville, Illinois. Before we go, though, Rebecca has a special announcement regarding the website.
The
that's
website
right.
is now up.
The website is here. What's the web address, Rebecca?
Good question.
Well,
it's the link is in our Instagram bio.
Find us on Instagram, dump_and_chase. Correct? That's our handle.
That's a great underscore.
You forgot an underscore.
Oh, I forgot
Dump_and_chase.
Okay, just dump and chase with some underscores between each of the
Too
words.
many underscores.
Find us on Instagram. Follow the link to our website. You can check out past episodes. Our quote board we have, which is hilarious.
I have more quotes to add.
Check that. Oh yeah, there's probably more from today.
That's
yeah.
right.
Oh, there's a whole lot from today.
But check it out. You can see all the past episodes and kind of get to know us a little bit more. So for Jake, Rebecca, and Reid, we will see you next week.